in northern Westminster, Massachusetts, a little town in northern Massachusetts, is considering legislation that would ban the sale of cigarettes and other tobacco products in their town. Cigarettes, of course, are responsible for the death of 400,000 Americans a year. More people die of cigarettes every day than have been killed by terrorists in the United States in any of the last half a dozen years. I mean, if you take 2001 out of the loop, probably that have been killed by terrorists ever in the United States. And, it raises some interesting issues. Jeff Steyer is on the line with us. He's the Director of Risk Analysis with the National Center for Public Policy Research, conservative think tank, nationalcenter.org, that typically takes the position of business over people. Hey, Jeff, welcome.
We actually take the interest of individuals who believe in freedom, both in the private sector and individuals themselves who like to have choices. But
yeah, and those individuals, you say freedom, you mean freedom of the billionaires and the corporations to run things. I get it.
Well, actually, we're actually against corporate cronyism, so I'll take issue with that.
Well, then why don't you tell the Koch brothers to stop taking all those fossil fuel subsidies?
Well, I think Tom Steyer is now, who no relation, by the way, Jeff Steyer here, has been investing in banks that are promoting frequent flyer miles. So we could make that argument, but I'm happy to talk with you about our issue today.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one. This town is banning tobacco products. I'm on record, and I stand behind it, as saying that we should not be using the force of government to ban anything that you can grow in your backyard, period. But that's a very different. And in other words, I don't have a problem with people using or abusing drugs. The concern I have is when it becomes commercial.
Well, I'm happy to hear you. And I've been on with you before, and you're always very straightforward and honest, and we don't always get that from public policy makers who try to claim, oh, well, we're trying to protect kids or whatever it is.
Right.
I think it's honest of you to acknowledge that what you're against is the corporate interest, and we could have a discussion on those grounds. But very often this argument gets couched in, well, we're trying to protect kids from tobacco, and therefore we're going to ban all tobacco, even sales to adults. So I think we're off to a good start in terms of here's what we're here to talk about. You are taking the position that this would be a good law, banning all of tobacco sales, because we don't want corporations to make money off it.
No, that's not true. I think that it may be a good law if it's the will of the community. I think a community, when it comes to commerce, a community should be able to regulate commerce. Right? I mean, this is fundamental to the founding of our republic. It's in the Constitution for our national community.
So we're on the same page.
One of the power. Yeah, I think we may well be, actually. And what you're suggesting, you wrote this op-ed saying that there was this faux pas or kerfuffle or whatever. President Obama is a longtime smoker, and he's apparently taken up chewing nicotine gum now. And he was chewing gum.
By the way, corporations are making lots of money off of that.
Of course. And as I said, this is not. I don't see this as a pro or anti-corporate issue. I suppose it could be, but let me set that aside for a moment.
Is that you're concerned about the commercialization of this commerce?
Yes. No. Well, actually, I am concerned apropos of this situation. And to finish the sentence I started before, President Obama was chewing nicotine gum in China. That was viewed as an insult by the Chinese. You're saying, hey, we'll send you some e-cigs and you can vape nicotine. And which is heavily addictive, 5 times more addictive than heroin, but the side effects of just nicotine addiction are pretty minimal. In fact, it seems to actually even have some neuroprotective effect. People who are long-term nicotine users are less likely to get Alzheimer's, although they're less likely to live long enough to get Alzheimer's. That we don't know if that's what's skewing the stats, but nonetheless, if the president wants to chew nicotine gum or wants to vape nicotine or whatever, that's fine with me. And I get what
And we at the National Center are sending him a package of a variety of different e-cigarettes so he can choose which form of nicotine he wants, because people think, and partially, in fact, because of his CDC director, have been making the argument that e-cigarettes are somehow almost as dangerous as smoking, when that's not the case. So I would love to see people like the president, who is still addicted to nicotine, have a choice and use things like e-cigarettes, which are a lot less harmful than smoking cigarettes.
I agree. And that said, if the president lived in a town that decided that they wanted to say, you're welcome to vape cigarettes. You're welcome to or nicotine. You're welcome to chew it. You just can't buy it here, which is a very different thing. This is throwing drug abuse into the realm of public health rather than throwing it into the realm of criminal justice.
Yep.
Right. And I think we both are opposed to pretty much any drug being in the realm of criminal justice. Do I have that right, Jeff?
I'm a libertarian.
Yeah. Okay. So you and I agree that all drugs should not be regulated by the criminal justice system, and people who have problems with those drugs should have easy and rapid availability to a healthcare system of some sort. We would view that system very differently. I think we should have a national single payer system, and you think people who have enough money should be able to hire a doctor, right?
Well, I think the market is good at allocating resources. But I think what drives me nuts about discussing these issues with progressives like you is that you are very rational. So it makes it a very interesting conversation to have. So what you're arguing is so long as the public in that municipality thinks banning tobacco is a good idea.
Sales of tobacco.
Sales of tobacco. You could grow it in your backyard, I guess.
Yeah. Or your brother could bring you some. I mean,
So if that's the argument, I think you're right that they ought to have the right to do that. I would argue that on public policy grounds, it is an ineffective way of achieving the mission of reducing the toll of tobacco, reducing profits off tobacco, because especially in a small town like this, it's very easy to go to another city, state to buy it.
Yeah, I don't absolutely disagree with that, but on the other hand, if you look at all the really effective social movements in history, they started someplace. And, if we're going to have...
As did a lot of the bad ones, so that's not a good reason.
No, it's a very good reason. If we're going to ultimately end up with a tobacco-free country, which would save the lives of 500,000 Americans a year, which is a good thing, I think that's a goal that we can all salute, then stopping the tobacco companies from promoting their products, both to adults and, frankly, to kids, and you and I both know that they're doing that, is a good start.
Well, I don't know that big tobacco companies today are doing that. I would question that. I would certainly say that we're seeing sales of candy-flavored Nicorette gum. Maybe that appeals to children. I don't know. But you really boil it down here to, do we want to live in a world without tobacco? And I think that gets into what I call the end game. What is the end game for tobacco control? Do we want to live in a world where people do not have a choice to enjoy tobacco products? And maybe do we want to live in a world where people don't have a choice to enjoy other risky behaviors? I enjoy skiing. It's dangerous. I don't want the government to ban that.
Yeah, I think that's a weak argument. Jeff, we'll live to debate another day. Jeff Steyer with nationalcenter.org.